Thank you for joining us again for another conversation with franchise executives. We're going to kick it off in just a moment. For those of you who haven't found our mastermind, I'm going to pop that on the screen right now. If you go to Facebook and search for Franchise Growth Mastermind, you can join our private Facebook group. There are many discussions going on right now. So if you're in the franchise industry, we'd love to have you be a part of that group. So be sure to join. So this morning we're going to talk through just complete updates on where we're at, where the mindset is at. So I'm going to add our other folks. Let's see, there we go, Ricky and Charles. We'll see if Allison can join in a second. Ricky, I would love for you to just kick this off, just general thoughts, maybe also from a business standpoint and also as a leader, what has gone in weeks you're addressing and approaching this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nick. It's a surreal and unprecedented situation in our industry right now, and what we've really focused on, one is a continuation of what's been at the heart of, I think, the success of our brand, and that's first off, always being obsessed about the success of our franchise partners. And even when we started seeing this as being a potentially a near-term situation, limited in time exposure, it was helping franchise partners really think about and identify ways to, first off, continue to grow sales, obviously in the restaurant space where our dining rooms are now closed in every state that we do business in. The shift to takeout and delivery options to be able to bolster top line sales. And while there's certainly nowhere near total sales that have been in the past, we have a number of very positive success stories. The second piece was around controlling costs and understanding their business model, how to tweak that. So sharing best practices across franchise partners as they've worked through some of the real challenges of a dramatic drop in sales, but also trying to be there for their team members and maintain a good staffing level that keeps team members employed. Making sure that they've got access to information that a small business owner may not typically have. So connecting them and sharing with them industry information, again, around best practices, how to drive sales, how to control cost, but also, as we've all been aware over the last 5 days with the passage of legislation, how then do we help our franchise partners really activate against that as quickly as they can? At the heart of all of this, though, is just, constant communication. We've been meeting with our franchise partners by conference call on a daily basis. A lot of Q&A takes place there, a lot of information sharing, and some of it's just listening so that they know that they're not in this alone. So staying fascinated around their success, helping them understand how to create a business model that creates some sense of success and progress from a revenue and a cost and a profitability side, understand where the resources are going to be to help them bridge this, what's turning into a much more extended surreal type situation. And at the heart of that, maintaining really, really solid communication across the system.
So I know this may be not the smartest of questions, but you think back through your career, and there's been various points that economy has been hit, so the financial markets have been hurt. But very rarely can we point to another thing like panic or of a presidential race that may create some more complexities from politics. Is there anything that you get to rely on as a leader that you can point to, whether it's a 2008 or 2001, that you're able to rely on for experience, or are you kind of just going at this somewhat blindly?
It's a great question, Nick, and one we've talked about with our franchise partners and amongst our team here is trying to find correlations or learnings from the past. What's different about those situations is while they were dramatically impactful on the business, there was a sense of finality to what the event was, whether, as you said, 2001 or the economic crisis in 2008. You had a sense of, wow, the landscape has changed dramatically, but now we know what the landscape looks like. So how do we respond and react to that? What's so different about the current situation, though, is this lack of sense of finality. It was it was disappointing, but understandable, but also a bit beneficial yesterday to hear in the president's press conference, just talking about a date that no sooner than the end of April. If you think back to how we've been going through this, there's been no sense of finality or even a date to work towards when things may potentially return to normal or begin to return to normal. And who knows if April 30th is going to be that date, but at least of, okay, we've got at least another 30 days here. So how do we continue to exploit the things that are working for us? How do we really energize around helping franchise partners find that resource? But then what could a relaunch plan look like? So the lack of sense of finality has made it so different here. But what is consistent is, okay, in a situation like this, in a retail environment or really any business environment, you've got to control your cash as aggressively as you can. So how do you control those costs, both the variable costs that go with doing the business that we have every day from a team member labor standpoint to food costs, which are the two primary drivers. But then how do you go after your fixed costs and help reduce those where possible? And I got to tell you, I think it's the global nature and the dramatic nature of this, but we've found our suppliers, I know a number of our franchise partners are having good progress in talking to even landlords and other cost bankers and lenders. The open-mindedness to at least have a conversation and get to some benefit is significantly different, I think, than what it's been in the past. So huge sense of unknown still out there. But there is a bit of a sense of everybody being in this together. But it's still a long road to hoe here.
Hey, Ricky, you really, I get struck at what so many people are thinking about, and what I was thinking about this morning, right? Which is that lack of finality. So knowing that we're in this at least till the end of April, and we're worried it may go past that, in an ideal world, how would this play out for you? After April 30th, what would happen in your ideal vision?
Yeah, I think there's two things here that in our business that having some type of date like this. So if you look at the federal legislation that was just passed last week, and franchise owners being able to understand that there is some benefit coming, some financial relief coming in the context of the payments for past labor, payroll costs. And then the ability to cover, I think it's 10 weeks worth of operating costs 2 months worth of operating costs going forward between labor, rent cost, interest cost, if you've got a mortgage on your property, payroll taxes, those type of things, that you can re-engage some of your hourly team members. One of the concerns was if this went on without a sense of finality and we had to continue, our franchise partners had to continue to lay off team members aggressively as they ran out of cash in their businesses, the startup costs for restaurants can be significant. So in effect, instead of having a brand new restaurant with a startup, we were going to have 40, 45 restaurants that are all trying to restart at the same time period. And so how do you even train that level of that level of volume of new team members coming into the system? So I believe a huge benefit to our franchise partners that make this choice is to stay employed with core team members, the really solid anchors of their business, so they don't run the risk of losing them. And when there is a green light, that they can sprint to an opening versus having to go through an extended training. The other side is on what's the retail offering that appeal to guests. And so our marketing resources are working on that promotional platform to re-engage guests. Value is going to be a huge, huge importance there. I think the ability to get together with friends and family, another key resonating message. So we've got the anchors that we're starting to build from a consumer perspective.
Allison, have you had successfully worked? Can you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Great. Welcome. Thanks for joining us too. So would love you to give kind of state of what's going on with Songs for Seeds too, and how you as a leader have battled through the last few weeks, and kind of what's run through your head as an emerging brand.
First of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, for Songs for Seeds, we're a kids music class, and we don't have any brick and mortar spaces. We're a mobile franchise business. So all of our Songs for Seeds owners across the country partner with other locations to run their classes. And our expenses only occur when classes are happening. We have very few fixed costs. They are rent and compensation primarily. So what happened is our headquarters are in New York City, and on March 12th, we decided that we needed to close down operations temporarily. And our location owners across the country soon followed suit. So they're sort of on pause right now. And what we've been doing, because nobody's incurring any expenses right now, band members have been, teachers, band members have been asked to go on unemployment, and we've been pivoting to the online space. We've been offering pre-recorded classes online, and starting next week, we are launching live Songs for Seats classes online. So it's been a big pivot for us.
Let's stay on the topic of pivoting. Ricky, to you, maybe talk about some of the things that you've looked at differently. And obviously nothing as a franchisor could prepare you for a moment like this. It almost forces your hand to start thinking about, one, obviously, how do we preserve this? So on the other side of this, which is still unknown, we don't know when this mess ends, but we're trying to preserve as much capital as possible so that we do have businesses on the other side of this. But what other pivoting moves are going on, and are you starting to see creativity that comes from other places within your franchise organization?
Yeah, we absolutely are starting to see that creativity, and it is in an area of our business that, while we've also always supported it, takeout, delivery, those type of things, it's always been an ancillary, kind of secondary or tertiary priority for most of our franchise owners. But with their dining rooms, the main source of their revenue, 90+% of their revenue being shut down, there's been some real aggressiveness and also creativity in reaching out to build the revenue through that takeout and delivery capabilities, and we're seeing significant growth in that. And when I do look at some, silver linings to an incredibly difficult situation, it would be the level of confidence, creativity around ideas, the operational expertise and insight that we're getting to be able to, as we recover in this business, to be much more effective as a brand and as individual franchisees on that outside the four walls revenue, the catering, the delivery, the takeout perspective as well. What's really been interesting and energizing, and it's at the soul of this brand, the DNA and the soul of our brand, is the community outreach that's taken place across our restaurants. We had, this was an idea that generated with one of our franchise partners, and we had the vast majority of our system embrace that. When the shutdowns first occurred and schools were closing, we had, again, the vast majority, probably north of 80% of our restaurants that offered schools, families and children that did not have access to school lunch programs, to come into their restaurants and eat for free. And that's when our dining rooms were still open. We've had quite a bit of community outreach between the restaurants and hospitals, the restaurants and grocery stores, where our franchise partners are providing meals for those workers. So they're doing that as to give back to their community, but it's also turning into revenue opportunities. One of our restaurants fed the local grocery store last Sunday, and it turned into a near 100-person catering order that took place a few days later. So they're doing it out of community outreach, but it's a level of creativity that's also creating some revenue for us as well.
Hey, Ricky, just for context, I'm curious, what percentage of your locations have stayed open for takeout and delivery?
As of today, we've got about 60% of our restaurants that are operating.
And how do you feel, not in a negative way, but what are your thoughts when you're speaking to a franchisee that doesn't want to stay open? Do you think it's a good idea? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's we were pretty direct in the first week that this took place, and that we're going to all stay open and operating as a brand. There were just too many unknowns at that time period around how are consumers going to respond, how much was going to shift to takeout, helping franchise owners understand what their kind of cost coverage break even was, and then how we're just getting some of those questions answered. And after we got a number of those questions answered and understood that, also respecting where these small business owners are and how much cash would, in a retail business, in a small business environment, there's a lot of folks that don't have more than, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days worth of cash on hand. And because this is so unprecedented, you can't force them to do something that is going to put their business at risk of survival through this. So we're trying to be as supportive and understanding and listen as we can. And that's why we moved also so quickly, Charles, to provide as much financial relief as we could as a franchisor. And we're fortunate to have long-term investors that are in the ownership group here and continue to believe bullishly about the future of the concept and the country as well.
Allison, we've talked about as a leader, there are so many complexities and balls that have to be juggled here. You have, especially for you and where you are, human side, you react as a human. You have a leader side and as a business operator, like how do you act as an entrepreneur? You have the balls of managing franchisees and what happens there. How are you mentally keeping everything together as you navigate this crazy time?
We're not. Obviously it's been challenging, but and we're overwhelmed by new information every single day about things in government, things just in general that could potentially help our owners. But really what we're doing is with every decision that we're making, we're trying to move as swiftly as possible because things are changing day to day. We're moving with obviously our first priorities towards safety. Our business is about getting families together in person. So it's been a huge pivot to getting families together online and still being there for our communities. And so our priority is safety first, but then we have to think about our staff, all of the people that work with us and taking care of them, all of our franchise owners and their staff that works for them and taking care of them. And as we were talking about earlier, expanding and maintaining the strength of this brand so that when the world does come back to the way that we were or to the new normal, that, we all have something that we built before to come back to. So really it's like splitting our brain and our energy into so many different areas. It's the pivot of what is the new for us. We're similar to a restaurant, except we're not doing takeout. We're now trying to provide our content online. What technology are we using? How are we trying to do that in the most cost-effective way possible? Because we're not yet really making money from it, although there are some possibilities in the near future. And also then building the content. So it's like thinking about safety, thinking about our owners, thinking about employees, and thinking about content and thinking about community. It's a lot of tentacles for sure.
Allison, now your franchisees operate from third-party locations, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you feel about that now? I mean, I guess one strength of your model has been that flexibility, the lack of the retail location. How do you think that's held up now in terms of giving franchisees an advantage, at least with lower overhead?
Yeah, that's been, it's honestly been the biggest advantage. The fact that we're a mobile franchise means, like I said earlier, we have very few fixed costs. And the most expensive thing that usually people are worried about right now is their rent on a space. And our Songs for Seeds franchise owners pay rent on an hourly basis to their landlord when they're running classes. All of their locations closed down, so there's no rent to pay right now. Their band, their musicians, or their teachers get paid by the class. There are no classes yet being run right now. They will get paid when there are online classes. So their major cost, they're really, there's no bleed right now. They have no expenses right now. They're basically sitting still. They're stagnant right now. And as headquarters, we're providing content to all of their families of our pre-recorded classes. Within this week and next week, we will be coming together as a system and having teachers teach online classes. But it's been a huge benefit to us that they have had, ever since they decided to shut down, they really have had no bills to pay. I mean, we all know what that's like right now, to not be bringing in revenue and still be paying bills at the end of the month. So that's been a huge asset.
Do you guys have a minimum royalty structure, Allison, or no?
Do we have a minimum royalty structure?
Yeah. So there's no fixed dollar amount. It's just based on revenue.
It's just based on revenue.
Good.
We've also been joined by the co-founder of Songs for Seats, another Allison.
Great.
Can you hear us, Allison?
Yes, I can. Thank
Great.
you.
So, continuing on, I would love to think that we're starting to see a pathway of when this ends, and the discussion has been around, is that at end of June? Is it May? Is it July? Is it a late summer? How, Ricky, we'll start with you. From a predictability standpoint, how do you start predicting for what happens at the end of this, and then how you ramp up and how you take advantage of some of the opportunities that might exist?
Yeah, there's Nick. There's two ways we're thinking about it. It's less about when is it going to happen and more about what needs to happen when we start. Sun comes up and we start moving as we did before and return to hopefully normal, but maybe the new normal. And it is around some tactical things. You know, what is the operating plan? Developing an operating plan with our brand team as well as with franchise partners, and how a restaurant can restart as tactically as how do you make sure the restaurant's clean? How do you get the right team on board and staffed? How do you get the right product in place? And then, as I was talking about earlier, the marketing component in that. What is that hard-hitting marketing message that we want out there as we start standing up restaurants and getting them moving? We have historically been very local store marketing driven versus brand-wide marketing, but we'll probably be more aggressive on the brand side to get that share of voice out there and get that awareness built with our guests. So we've got tools around social, we've got tools around direct mail from an email standpoint, and other outreach tools that we'll be leveraging. So helping the operators get up and running, helping guests and consumers know that we're back up and running, and giving them a retail reason to come in to try Eggs Up Grill, are the true primary things. We're also creating part of that plan is creating financial flexibility for our franchisees. We've started modeling, much lower rates of royalties for a time period to help those franchisees regain their footing, because we're in this for the long term, and helping them get back up and stable is critical to our success as a brand, as to theirs as individual business owners.
What about Song for Seats? Do you guys have the bandwidth mentally? Are you starting to think about the other side of this at all? Or at what point do you start thinking about what opportunities exist for a brand that was able to still deliver content in a time where most businesses are focused on just protecting what they have?
Is Allison on?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Oh, great. Do you want to answer?
Sure. Yeah. No, I are looking beyond this in a very exciting way, because what we're able to do is actually reach beyond our location families. When we deliver this content, digital content that Allison must have mentioned, this live music experience in the homes, which people are actually, what we're doing is we're not just giving that to our New York City families and our franchise location families and offering that out. We're actually reaching out to several parenting partners, countries. So the tentacles of the brand will resonate much wider than if we just had our physical franchise location. So we see it as actually a bonus and a positive opportunity once we begin selling franchises again and getting back, as the world comes back together and get back to ourselves. It may actually be helpful to us to have had our brand out and liking what they see, and that'll help both with franchise sales, but also the sale of the customer for our franchise owners that are, waiting to reopen.
What about working with franchisees? I mean, that ends up being part of the definition of what story is told out of this. There are brands that are stepping up in as big of a way as possible to say, hey, we have your back. And our belief, and we've talked about this a lot in some of the conversations we've had, that on the other side of this, there might even be a tab on the franchise development websites that says, how did you support franchisees during a time of crisis? Ricky, do you want to take a first swing at that of how are you supporting franchisees, and how do you expect that to be a part of the story as we get past this?
Sure, absolutely. And I posted a note on LinkedIn last week to our franchise prospects and recapped at a high level some of the initiatives we've taken as a brand to help support our franchisees even through this time period. So that was one of the key questions that came up from our franchise development team really quickly, is that what is the information we can share with prospects? That has been one of the encouraging things here, and it probably has to do with people having more time on their hands now to sit in front of social media, but our lead generation has continued to be very strong through this time period, and the quality of leads is maintained as well. And that may be a function of people that aren't in a service industry, the restaurant industry, not being as impacted as quickly as we were. But we've been really pleased with the quality of and the volume of lead generation through this. But we started off, to your tactical question around what specifics did we do. We started off with royalty waivers. We got 4 or 5 days into this, and royalty deferrals. We got 5 days into this and went from deferrals to waivers until further notice, because we quickly understood how impactful and how significant this was going to be. We did the same thing around marketing obligations, and so everything that we could do that we were doing as a business, we wanted to enable our franchise partners to be able to do as well, which was conserve cash as much as possible and reduce those costs at the same time that you're trying to find ways to drive revenue into the business. So that'll be a key piece of our story. What really helped us through this as well, and it's been a fascination of ours as a team since we've acquired the business, is having an incredibly strong relationship with our franchise partners, making sure that the decisions we made were always made with obviously brand first, but a close second, or a 1A, the success of our franchise partners. Consumers respond to a brand, but we've got to have successful franchise partners for them to be able to experience that brand. And that reputation has come through very strongly for us. And we've had a great, incredibly difficult time, totally unexpected. You couldn't have scripted this, but the quality of our relationship with our franchise partners has continued to be very strong through this.
Yeah, I love that. Again, I think this becomes part of the story. Songs for Seeds. Same question to you guys. How are you guys supporting franchisees in a time on the other side of it?
Sure. Well, first of all, since we're not charging them for anything, there's been no revenues, so they're not paying us any percentage. Besides that, we are providing them with daily unique content from the class to give to their communities every single morning, so that when the kids wake up, they have parts of the class to enjoy with their families. That's entirely, obviously, at our expense, not at theirs. And like we said, I hate to be redundant, but starting next week, when we'll be providing them with the classes online, that again is, our production, our expense, and we're just giving it to them to give to their communities to, continue the connectivity, the strength of the connectivity with their teachers and with their location owners. And we are and hoping, like Allison said, that really not only strengthens the brand in terms of current families that are already engaged, but reaches new families through online, because, when you're in a location, you're limited to the 15 or so miles that people are willing to travel to come take the class. When you're providing classes online, there's no location limitation. And, so we're hoping that by continuing to provide ways for their families to engage with them, and to engage with Songs for Seeds and their teachers, that when they reopen, those bonds will be even stronger, and that they will have an even wider audience to reopen to.
Guys, As I'm sitting here, I've had conversations with my team as we work through this. We're supporting clients. And one comment that comes up for me is that when we pull through this, after this, our standards are going to be at a whole other level. Do you feel like going through this, and it may be too early right now, we're in the heart of it or not yet. Do you feel like your goals pre-COVID were maybe too low and that this is going to reinvigorate or even set higher goals after this?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. And with a tactical example, I think the answer is yes. The short answer is yes, because I think we've taken actions in this time period that have a very tactical thing, enabling online ordering for takeout. We had a platform in place that we were working on, but we were working on that with a series of other priorities. But we went from, well, we'll be there in 5 months to we've got it in 3 days. And so I think simplifying the priorities in the business and taking that sense of clarity and purpose out of this will be one of the benefits, if you had to find benefits through this, that could be effective for us going forward.
Ricky, I think like that really I feel like things that would have been thought about and implemented over 9 months are now happening in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And, yeah, I think there's two things. Number one, it's as a brand, how do you simplify against the priorities? But I also think that as we've all run into ourselves or with our franchise partners, with other business partners, sometimes you've got to sell in an idea, and selling in the idea to get the collaboration and the open-mindedness takes a little bit of time. I think people are going to be much more open-minded and responsive to things that they see an initial benefit to. And I think that we've all been, I don't know that we could have prevented it, but we've all been exposed. Our business models have been exposed. So how do we find different ways to strengthen those business models for the unexpected in the future? Takeout and delivery and making that a key piece of how we drive top line revenues could be a really important piece for us as a brand as we get out of this.
And ladies, I think, Songs for Seeds, the good brands in the supplemental education markets, mobile bit, I think in many ways, this crisis forges the value of those business models and gives you a big takeaway, no?
Yeah, I don't know. Al, do you want to take this or not?
Sure. I was gonna go off of what was just said, which is that we have actually been talking about moving Songs for Seeds into a digital space for the better part of 2 years. In fact, We've had several meetings about it. Allison worked at MTV. We had many a meeting, but due to budget and bandwidth, we just never pushed forward with it. And what we find amazing in this COVID environment is that in 2 weeks' time, we've been able to pull together on a shoestring budget what we really literally have been talking about for 2 years. So it is the simplification of priorities and deciding that if there's a gift in any madness, which there usually always is, at the end of suffering comes some sort of gain. I think hopefully for our business and particularly for our franchise owners, where they'll see some real brand extension and hopefully success in that way, that this is a good thing and something that we've wanted to do for a very long time.
And we had a meeting yesterday. Allison and I are business partners with our husbands, and we had a Sunday night meeting, and we were putting deadlines to everything. And Allison literally said, let's put a deadline of next week. And this is like a deadline that would normally would have been a year and a half from now. And she was like, let's just make it next week. That means it has to happen by next week. And it's true. We said by next Friday, we'll be doing this. So you know what? By next Friday, we're going to be doing it in whatever shape it is. We will just push forward. It will be everything that we've been talking about, like she said, for the past year and a half to 2 years in this very condensed production schedule, and we will get it out there.
That's what I find so amazing. And I guess for brands and companies that act this way now, on the other side, that's where the innovation is.
Right.
I guess we all feel like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, you have all these things, but everything's getting done in a big way, and it's forcing, I think, good franchises to to elevate these standards. And so that's amazing. And I you know, it's amazing to me to see what's going on. And I'm curious, after the fact, it may not matter the industry. It's going to come down to the founders who acted like things that happen right now and who didn't, you know, and sat back.
Yeah, I think it's also going to happen with franchisees too. Franchisees, the ones that want to hustle or have the mindset to stand out during this time, they're going to be the ones that say, "All right, there's no more excuses. This is my opportunity." And I think entrepreneurs, those that are entrepreneurial, have that mindset already. That, you know, we're here to own the opportunity. And if the opportunity is to speed up the process and some of these things that we've had sitting on the sidelines for a while, well, let's do it now. So, you know, the good, I think, in the mindset of everybody here and pretty much anybody that is finding success in business is they have the mindset to find the silver lining. Like we believe that there's going to be a tomorrow, even when the most grim, nasty stuff is hitting, we're going to have an opportunity tomorrow, you know?
You know, I
also think
what you were saying, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just going to say our franchise partners are going to have a different set of expectations as well. When we've shown how fast we can move on things, they're going to have that set of expectations going forward too. So it'll be good for all of us. And I think that entrepreneurial mindset that you talked about is going to be critical. You know, what are those few priorities? How do you move quickly? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of good, so that we get solutions out there and drive the business in all areas.
Allison, were you going to say something too?
Oh, I was just going to say we have an expression amongst the four of us that we've said before. It's called "keep moving forward," and this KMF philosophy of no matter. Email during this crisis, someone who's losing their business and said to me, you know, crisis doesn't create leadership, it reveals it. And I think our franchisees look to us as franchisors as leaders. And I think in crisis, and particularly in this situation, I think we're trying to reveal how well we can. Part of our silver lining will be is even a stronger bond with how hard we worked to make sure that they were okay and also successful at the end of this.
And I think the people that we've looked to as unbelievably inspiring during these times, during this time, is our other entrepreneurs. It's not the huge businesses that have been out there. It's it's the restaurants that we frequent, and we see the way that they have quickly pivoted. It's the exercise studios, the boutique exercise studios, how one day they shut the doors, the next day you're able to do that exact exercise class in your living room. It's the like-minded businesses in the kids space that all of a sudden, like, nobody rested for a minute. And, I don't know if that's the healthiest culture that we live in, but it certainly has been inspiring, and it has certainly gotten our creative juices going from, listen, there was a lot of, I'm sure we all felt a lot of shock, and that the rug was pulled out from under our feet, and there was sadness and there was nervousness. But I can't tell you how also keeping in mind all the terrible things that are going on in this world right now, but all the sparks of creativity that have happened in safe spaces, and where you use the word excitement when all these horrible things are going on, but when you're thinking just about your business and you're not thinking about really the health crisis that's unfolding, that you could actually get excited about, this new frontier that you're trying to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we need, we don't need an event like this, but I think human beings, a lot of human beings have taken things for granted. We got too far away from 2008 or too far away from September 11th that we end up forgetting the value of life sometimes. And the value of life is not just business. It's also the ability for us to embrace our children, or for us to be able to take a breath and look around. That maybe there's some good clarity that comes out of a moment like this. The other thing, and I appreciate what you were saying, obviously I study the media, and right now it's all the negative. And what I look forward to, and I think this is going to be a sign that we're taking the baby steps to recover, is when the media starts covering success stories of people hustling or being creative or being a hero in the most local sense possible. When that shift starts happening, we can get away from the same story every day about number of new cases, number of new deaths, what cities are shutting down, and we can move into this next area. I'm looking forward to that moment because I think they're on the opposite side of any crisis. There can be a lot of really, really good energy that creates a lot of momentum for those that want to own it.
Yeah.
Charles, let's go through final thoughts, just final questions or thoughts that you have.
So, it's interesting. I'll pick up on Allison used words that I'm fascinated. She said something, no more safe spaces, new frontier. Setting aside the personal health issues, which, and you ladies are here I'm in New Jersey, so we're at the heart of this right now. It's escalating here. So I don't think we could mitigate what's going on. I still think we're all a little shell shocked. Okay, so like what we would have accepted 2 weeks ago, we would have never said they're going to shut down New York City. We've learned to accept that. Now we're going to April 30th. We're accepting that. So the standards, I mean, I don't even know if we'll fully realize psychologically the effects of all of this. So aside from the health aspect, I will reflect on the positive, which is like everyone else's experiences and so many leaders we're speaking to, this is a time to innovate, and this is forcing us to rethink everything. I think everything's going to be different on the other side of this. And for me, I'm just focusing on that. Whenever it is, hopefully it's June. So I think there's positive momentum.
Well, I mean, a lot of our potential franchise owners are people who maybe have a baby, leave the corporate world. It's not only that. We have plenty of, people who are in the multi-unit business mentality, but we do have a lot of people who, change, it's logical change, and we have flexible hours, having come from maybe corporate America or bureaucracy. And so this time actually is reframing people's perspective on working from home, on having flexible hours, on what it's like to kind of balance. People are either going to run out of their houses like, get me out of here, I never want to work from home again, or they're going to say, wait a minute, I can do this. I might reinvent myself and reinvent my life. And I actually think it will potentially be a big boom for franchising in general, that people are going to either have lost their job and want to buy a career before, or they're just going to have a psychological kind of experience, some existential thing like, what am I doing all day sitting in an office when I could be doing something meaningful for myself and my family?
One of the things I hope comes out of all of this also is renewed appreciation for small businesses and the role that they play in the success of our economy. And while, an example would be the legislation last week. While it's incredibly encouraging that volume of dollars is out there, the amount of time it's going to take for business owners to realize that is unrealistic for many, many business owners, small business owners here. You're talking 6-8 weeks likely that it's going to take from the time the legislation's passed till there's cash coming in. And these are small businesses that have already been out, in my case, have already been out of business for almost 3 weeks now. So you're asking a small business owner to go nearly 3 months with no revenue and income. So I hope that one thing that comes out of this is a much greater appreciation and sensitivity to the role that small businesses play in the success of America, and how we change that sensitivity to much more proactive and impactful actions, to whether that's through tax code, whether that's through regulations from a wage and hour standpoint, so that we're fair to the employee, certainly, but also respect the role that small businesses play in the economy that we have here in America.
Allison, final thoughts?
I think the final thoughts are that in this crisis that's going on, there have definitely been some silver linings. I think we all have spoken about the business silver linings that have come out of sort of, having to force your pedal to the metal and do things that you've always dreamt about on a shoestring budget, with smaller staff on a truncated timeline. And I think also, being locked inside with your families has given us the opportunity to be thankful for all the restaurants out there that have, catered meals to us in the past, and the teachers that have helped us educate our children their whole lives. But there's something pretty unbelievable about just being in your house with your family and having this time together, and having all of these businesses sort of cater to that temporary, if not new, existence. And it's been, I don't know, it's very, very interesting to be a part of, and I've done my share of laundry for the next few years. I'm good. I'm good with laundry.
Yeah, this is a time, Ricky, I appreciate your statement. I think this is a time to understand small business. I think there's a great opportunity to understand a little bit more about independent owners, independently owned and operated businesses, because I'm not sure the general community understands how a franchisee works. I think there's opportunity to educate folks of that. I think there's opportunity to find the silver linings. And I do think there's opportunity right now to push pause in your own brain, even if it's for just a few minutes, to recognize that for the rest of our lives, we will talk about how an event. This is like probably the equivalent for great-great-grandparents of dealing with the Titanic, that there's something that you remember how you dealt with a story that was so impactful to such a large group of individuals that basically connected the world through something that's so invincible. So my hope is that on the other side of this, the labor market, two things happen. This might be the smack in the face to the millennials that shows them a bad day. So they're going to come back with a work ethic that we'll talk about in 20 years as being incredible. Two, it's going to open up the labor market, that those that really want to step up and great things have the ability to do it. And businesses are going to be waiting with open arms for those that say, hey, boss, what can I do? So I think there's going to be a change of climate there. Franchising in any downturn in the economy, it opens up the opportunity to work and say, I am ready to be a business owner for myself. And now I understand the hero stories that came out of this. So my hope is that there's a lot of positive that happens on the other side of this very, very, very painful time. We still are battling through the unknown. As we look back at some of these conversations, which I appreciate all of you giving us a little bit of your time to share your viewpoints on this. When we look back on these conversations, it'll be interesting to see when the conversations were had, during what point during this crisis, because I think the collective is going to show true leadership, and that people are stepping up in a much bigger way than we've even understood as leaders. So I want to thank all of you for your insights. I wish you the best of luck as we continue to navigate this. And then obviously for those watching this video, wherever you end up seeing it, make sure you join our mastermind, Franchise Growth Mastermind on Facebook if you want to continue to have these discussions. Thank you to all of you. Best of luck, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.